Get them out of my lobby. The command cracked across the Grand Meridian like a glass dropped on marble. Security moved first. Two broad-shouldered guards stepped toward Derek, while his daughter Sophie tightened both hands around the sleeve of his worn jacket. Around them, conversations faded. Champagne glasses stopped halfway to painted lips. Phones rose from polished tables, their cameras hungry for humiliation. Latasha stepped between Derek and the guards. "No," she said. Assistant Manager Preston Hale stared at her as if she had forgotten her place. "Move. He has a confirmed reservation. He has a stolen bracelet. You don't know that. I know what kind of man walks into a five-star hotel looking like that." The chandelier above them spilled cold light across the lobby. Rain tapped against the towering windows, and the faint smell of wet wool clung to Derek's coat. Sophie's breathing came fast and shallow beside him. Derek said nothing. That silence bothered Preston more than anger would have, because angry men could be dismissed. Loud men could be removed. Desperate men could be made to look dangerous. But Derek was watching. Not pleading. Not shrinking. Watching. "Daddy," Sophie whispered, "did we do something wrong?" Derek looked down at her. His face softened. "No, sweetheart." "Then why are they treating us like we did?" For one brief second, the entire lobby seemed to hold its breath. Preston's jaw tightened. "Sir, I'm giving you one final chance to leave quietly." Derek raised his eyes. "And I'm giving you one final chance to check the keycard log." A nervous glance passed between the security guards. Preston forced a laugh. "You think you understand our security system? I understand timestamps. You understand nothing about this hotel." Derek's gaze moved slowly across the marble floors, the brass desk lamps, the gold crest above the elevators. His expression did not change. But Latasha noticed something. Not fear. Recognition. As though he had seen every corner of this place long before tonight. 6 hours earlier, no one had looked twice when Derek and Sophie entered through the revolving doors. He wore scuffed boots, faded jeans, and a navy jacket with one broken zipper. A canvas duffel hung from his shoulder. Sophie carried a small purple backpack and tried not to shiver. To the Grand Meridian staff, they looked misplaced. Too ordinary for the marble. Too tired for the chandeliers. Too poor for the room rates. What no one knew was that Derek Mercer had designed the lobby himself 12 years earlier. He had chosen the limestone, approved the crest, signed the first payroll checks, and owned every room above them. But that night, he had not come as a billionaire. He had come as a broke single father named Derek Miller, carrying one prepaid reservation and one quiet question. How did his hotel treat people when it believed they had no power? Sophie tugged his hand as they approached the front desk. "Are we really staying here?" "That's the plan. It looks like a palace." Derek smiled faintly. "Palaces are just buildings, sophomore. What makes them special?" He looked toward the employees behind the desk. The people inside. Then Preston Hale saw them, and smiled without kindness. Preston's smile stayed in place as Derek and Sophie reached the front desk. Not warm. Not welcoming. Measured. The kind of smile people used when they had already decided how little respect someone deserved. "Good evening," Derek said. "I have a reservation under Miller." Preston glanced at the worn duffel bag, then at Derek's boots. "Miller. Derek Miller. And you're certain it's for this hotel?" Sophie looked up at her father. Derek kept his voice calm. "Yes." Preston tapped the keyboard slowly, though his eyes barely moved across the screen. Behind him, the lobby glowed with soft amber light. A pianist played near the bar, each note floating above the low murmur of wealthy guests and rolling luggage. After a few seconds, Preston leaned back. "I'm not seeing anything." Derek placed his phone on the counter. The confirmation number was clearly visible. It was prepaid. Preston did not touch the phone. Online confirmations can be misleading. "It has your hotel's address." Then perhaps the reservation was canceled. It wasn't. Preston's smile thinned. "You have no reservation. I have the confirmation." "Then take it. Somewhere else." The words were quiet, but cruel enough to carry. A couple standing nearby turned to look. The man wore a tailored overcoat. The woman held a champagne flute and watched Derek as though poverty were something contagious. Sophie moved closer to him. "Daddy, I'm cold." Derek reached down and rubbed her shoulders. Her coat was damp from the rain, and a small tremor ran through her body. That was when Latasha noticed them. She had been helping an elderly guest at the far end of the desk. Her dark hair was pulled into a neat bun, and a brass name tag rested above her heart. She watched Sophie for 1 second, then crossed toward the closed cafe. Preston saw her. Latasha. She stopped. The cafe is closed. I know. Then why are you going in there? Latasha looked at Sophie's pale face. Because she's freezing. Preston lowered his voice. That is not our problem. Latasha held his gaze. Then she walked into the cafe anyway. The espresso machine hissed in the quiet. A minute later, she returned with a paper cup of hot chocolate and placed it gently in front of Sophie. Careful, she said. It's warm. Sophie wrapped both hands around it. Thank you. You're welcome, sweetheart. Preston's jaw tightened. Do not confuse hospitality with charity. Latasha turned toward him. Hospitality without humanity is just expensive furniture. The piano continued playing, but the space around the desk seemed suddenly still. Derek looked at Latasha more carefully now, not because she had helped his daughter, because she had done it after being warned not to. Preston stepped closer. Check another hotel. We are nearly full. Latasha reached for the keyboard. Let me search the confirmation number. That won't be necessary. She entered it anyway. 3 seconds passed. Then her eyes changed. There it is, she said. Preston looked sharply at the screen. Derek watched both of them. Latasha turned the monitor slightly. 1 room. Prepaid. 2 guests. Sophie smiled up at her father. But Preston did not apologize. He leaned toward Latasha and whispered something Derek was never meant to hear. Delete it. Delete it. Latasha did not move. Preston stood beside her, close. Enough that only she and Derek could hear him. His voice was low, polished, almost gentle. That made it worse. The Wellington party just arrived, he said. They want the extra suite. This is not a suite. It connects to one. It's already paid for. Preston's eyes hardened. Then refund it. Latasha looked at Derek. He stood quietly with one hand resting on Sophie's shoulder. The little girl was sipping hot chocolate, unaware that a decision was being made about whether she and her father deserved shelter from the rain. Latasha turned back to the screen. No. Preston blinked once. Excuse me. I said no. You are not authorized to override me. And you are not authorized to erase a confirmed reservation because someone richer walked in. 3 words passed between them. Delete the room. I won't. Think carefully. The piano near the bar shifted into a slower song. Rain slid down the tall windows in silver lines, and somewhere behind the front desk, a printer clicked and hummed like nothing important was happening. But something important was happening. A woman with no power was deciding what kind of person she would be when power leaned close and whispered. Preston smiled again, but there was no warmth left in it. Fine, he said. Put them in 412. Latasha frowned. That room is out of service. Temporary hold. The thermostat is broken. Then give them blankets. He walked away before she could answer. Latasha stared at the screen for a moment, her fingers still resting on the keyboard. Then she printed the key cards. I'm sorry, she said to Derek. The room is not what you reserved. Is it safe? Yes. Then it's enough. She looked at him more carefully. Most guests complained when the pillows were wrong. This man had just been denied a room he had already paid for, humiliated in front of strangers, and sent to a space marked for maintenance. Still, he did not raise his voice. Sophie smiled at Latasha. Does it have a window? It does. Then it's probably nice. Latasha swallowed. I'll bring extra blankets. She led them toward the elevators herself. The lobby gave way to a quieter hallway where the carpet muffled their footsteps. The air smelled faintly of lemon polish and old heat. Sophie walked between them, holding her cup with both hands. When they reached room 412, Latasha opened the door. The room was clean but cold. A weak draft moved through the curtains. The thermostat flashed an error code in pale red numbers. Sophie set down her backpack. Are you going to get in trouble? She asked. Latasha paused. For helping us, Sophie added. Derek looked at his daughter, then at Latasha. Good people usually pay first, he said. Latasha gave a small, tired smile. Sometimes. She left to find blankets. Derek waited until the door closed. Then he crossed to the thermostat and removed the cover. Behind it, the wiring was scorched. Not worn. Ignored. He pulled a folded page from inside his jacket. It listed repeated maintenance complaints from the past 6 months. Room 412 was on it 3 times. Derek stared at the damaged wires. The test was no longer about manners. It was about what his hotel had learned to hide. The blankets arrived 10 minutes later. Latasha carried 3 of them herself, folded neatly against her chest, along with a small space heater from the housekeeping closet. I know it's not much, she said. Sophie touched the top blanket. It's soft. That one's yours. Derek watched Latasha plug in the heater, test the outlet, and kneel beside the thermostat. She pressed 2 buttons, waited, then frowned when the same red error code returned. It's been doing this for months, she admitted. Months. Latasha glanced toward the door before answering. Maintenance keeps closing the work orders. Why? They're told to. The room fell quiet. Outside, rain struck the window in quick, uneven taps. The heater clicked to life, pushing a weak stream of warm air across the carpet. Sophie climbed onto the bed and wrapped herself in the blanket like a cape. Derek kept his voice casual. Who tells them? Latasha stood slowly. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. Her eyes met his. For the first time, she seemed uncertain about him. Not afraid. Curious. There was something too precise in his questions. Something too controlled in the way he studied the damaged thermostat, the outlet, the smoke. Detector above the door. Most tired fathers wanted sleep. Derek wanted patterns. I should get back downstairs, she said. Thank you. Latasha nodded, then paused at the door. Mr. Miller? Yes. Be careful what you ask around here. Then she left. Derek waited until her footsteps disappeared down the hallway. Sophie peeked over the blanket. Do you think she likes us? I think she has a good heart. She looks sad. Derek glanced toward the closed door. Sometimes good people look tired when they've been carrying things alone. An hour later, Sophie was warm and asleep. Derek stepped into the hallway. He moved quietly through the 4th floor, not like an owner inspecting his property, but like a man learning what happened inside it after the reports were printed and forgotten. Near the service elevator, he heard voices. I already told you, I didn't take it. A housekeeper stood beside her cart, hands trembling. Her name tag read Elena. Across from her, a wealthy guest held an empty jewelry box while Preston watched with folded arms. My watch was there this morning, the guest snapped. Elena shook her head. I never touched it. Preston sighed. Then you won't mind emptying your pockets. Latasha appeared from the stairwell. She already checked the room with security. Preston turned. This doesn't concern you. It concerns her. It concerns the guest. It should concern the truth. The hallway went still. Derek remained near the corner, unseen. Security searched Elena's cart. Nothing. Then the guest's husband stepped out of the elevator, holding the missing watch. You left this in the spa locker. No one apologized. Preston simply dismissed Elena with a wave. Latasha walked beside the housekeeper until her breathing slowed. Derek watched them disappear down the service hall. Then he looked back at Preston. The man adjusted his cuffs and returned to the lobby as if nothing had happened. That was when Derek understood. The cruelty in his hotel was not a mistake. It was a system, and Latasha had been standing against it alone. By midnight, the Grand Meridian had settled into the kind of silence expensive hotels worked hard to manufacture. Soft carpets swallowed. Footsteps. Elevators opened without a sound. Behind closed doors, guests slept beneath pressed sheets and trusted that everything below them was under control. It wasn't. Derek stood near the service corridor with a paper cup of coffee cooling in his hand. From there, he could see the edge of the front desk, the bell station, and the staff entrance leading toward the kitchens. Latasha moved through all 3. She helped a young bellman adjust a torn glove before Preston saw it. She slipped a meal voucher to a dishwasher whose paycheck had been delayed. She rewrote a guest complaint so a new receptionist would not be blamed for a system error. None of it was dramatic. No applause. No witnesses. Just quiet mercy practiced in the spaces where dignity was usually lost. Derek had spent years studying numbers. Occupancy rates. Labor costs. Guest retention. Profit per room. But numbers had never shown him this. They had never shown the woman holding the whole place together with small acts of grace, while management treated kindness like insubordination. A voice behind him broke the silence. You're wandering. Derek turned. Preston stood at the end of the corridor, one hand in his pocket, the other holding a tablet. I was looking for ice, Derek said. The machine is beside the elevators. I must have missed it. Preston looked at the untouched coffee. You miss a lot. Derek said nothing. Preston stepped closer. People like you usually understand boundaries. People like me? Guests who should be grateful they were allowed to stay. The words hung between them. Derek's expression remained calm. What happens to employees who complain here? Preston's eyes narrowed. That's an unusual question. I heard some of them talking. Then you heard people who should be working. So there have been complaints. Preston gave a thin smile. Every workplace has unhappy people. Even when the fire alarms fail? The smile disappeared. For 1 second, something cold moved across Preston's face. Then Latasha entered the hallway carrying a stack of clean towels. She stopped when she saw them. "Mr. Miller," she said, "is everything all right?" Preston answered for him. He was just leaving. Derek looked at Latasha. Her eyes shifted toward the tablet in Preston's hand. On the screen was an open employee file. Her name was at the top. Latasha Brooks. Final warning. Derek saw it before Preston turned the screen away. That was when the pieces began to fit. The anonymous reports. The maintenance failures. The payroll complaints. Someone inside the hotel had documented all of it carefully enough to frighten the people benefiting from silence. Derek looked at Latasha again, not as a helpful employee, as a witness. Preston moved closer to her. "I need you in my office." "Why?" "You know why." "No, I don't." He lowered his voice. "Someone has been sending complaints to corporate." Latasha's face did not change, but her grip tightened around the towels. Derek noticed. So did Preston. 3 quick sentences followed. "Was it you?" "I have work to do." That wasn't an answer. The corridor seemed to grow colder. Latasha lifted her chin. "I reported what I saw." Preston smiled. Not with anger. With relief. Because now he knew exactly whom to destroy. At 12:17 a.m., Preston called Latasha to suite 1804. The message sounded routine. A guest had reported a missing diamond bracelet. Security needed a staff witness. Latasha read the note twice before leaving the front desk. Derek saw her expression change. "What is it?" he asked. "Nothing." "That doesn't look like nothing." She folded the note and slipped it into her pocket. "Stay with your daughter, Mr. Miller." Then she walked toward the elevators. Derek waited 5 seconds. Then he followed. Suite 1804 occupied the corner of the hotel's most expensive floor. When Latasha entered, Preston was already inside with 2 security guards and a woman in a silver evening dress. The room smelled of perfume, champagne, and fresh flowers. "My bracelet was on that table," the woman said. Preston pointed toward a cleaning cart near the bedroom door. "And Ms. Brooks was seen entering this suite earlier." Latasha stared at him. "I delivered towels." "Alone?" "Yes." "Convenient." One of the guards opened the cart. Folded sheets. Soap. 2 bottles of water. Then his hand stopped. He pulled out a velvet jewelry pouch. The woman gasped. Preston did not. Latasha's face went still. "That is not mine." Preston took the pouch and opened it. A diamond bracelet flashed beneath the lights. "You were saying?" "I never touched it." "The bracelet was in your cart." "Because someone put it there." Preston sighed, as though disappointed by her lack of cooperation. "Give me your badge." Latasha looked toward the guards. Neither met her eyes. Then Derek spoke from the doorway. "What time was the bracelet reported missing?" Everyone turned. Preston's face tightened. "You are not supposed to be here." "What time?" The woman crossed her arms. "Around midnight." Derek looked at the security guard. "And when did Ms. Brooks enter the room?" The guard checked his tablet. 11:42. "How long was she inside?" 3 minutes. Derek nodded toward the bedroom. "Was the guest present?" "No," Preston said sharply. Derek walked to the table where the bracelet had supposedly been left. A half-empty champagne bottle sat beside 2 glasses. One glass held melted ice. He looked at the room service receipt. It was stamped 11:58 p.m. The guest returned after Latasha left, Derek said. Preston stepped forward. "That proves nothing." "It proves the room was entered again." The woman's eyes shifted. Derek noticed. He walked toward the cleaning cart and touched the top towel. It was warm, fresh from the laundry. But the towels Latasha had delivered earlier had already been placed in the bathroom. "This cart wasn't here at 11:42, he said. Silence. Preston laughed once. "And you know that how?" "Because the service elevator log records every cart sensor passing this floor." The guard frowned. "Cart sensor." Derek looked at him. "Installed 3 years ago after an insurance audit." Preston's face lost color. There were details a broke guest should not know. Derek held out his hand for the tablet. "Check the elevator log." "No," Preston said. The guard checked anyway. His eyes widened. "This cart came up at 12:09. 8 minutes after the bracelet was reported missing, Latasha looked at Preston. The truth was now standing in the room with them. Quiet, patient, unavoidable. Derek's voice remained calm. Someone brought the cart here. After the accusation, Preston stared at him, then at the tablet, then at Latasha. The trap had failed. But men like Preston rarely stopped when the truth embarrassed them. They became dangerous. Give me your badge. Preston's voice was no longer polished. It was flat, cold, final. Latasha stood in the center of Suite 1804 while the bracelet glittered on the table between them. The lie had been exposed, but no one moved to apologize. No one asked who planted the evidence. No one looked embarrassed. That was the danger of a corrupt system. When the truth arrived, it did not always change the room. Sometimes it only revealed who had chosen not to care. Latasha held Preston's gaze. The elevator log proves the cart was brought up after the complaint. I'm aware of what the log says. Then investigate it. I am investigating. No, you're punishing the person you failed to frame. The security guards shifted uneasily. Preston stepped closer. You have a history of insubordination. I have a history of refusing to lie. You contacted corporate. Yes. You accessed confidential maintenance records. I reported safety violations. You undermined management. I protected employees you were hurting. 3 sentences. 3 truths. Then silence. Beyond the windows, lightning flashed across the city. The glass shuddered under a hard gust of wind, and rain began striking the building in heavy, slanting sheets. Derek watched Latasha carefully. She was afraid. He could see it in the tightness around her mouth, in the way her thumb pressed against the edge of her name badge. But courage was never the absence of fear. Courage was dignity, refusing to kneel before it. Preston extended his hand. Your badge. Latasha did not remove it. Instead, she looked toward the guards. You both saw the log. Neither answered. She turned to the woman in the silver dress. You know I didn't take your bracelet. The woman looked away. Finally, Latasha faced Preston again. What do you want me to say? That you made a mistake. I didn't. That you mishandled the guest's property. I didn't. That this was a misunderstanding. It was a setup. Preston's nostrils flared. Choose your next words carefully. Latasha reached up and unclipped the badge herself. For a moment, she held it in her palm. A small piece of brass. 8 years of night shifts. Missed birthdays. Double shifts when others called out. Hundreds of guests helped, comforted, defended. All reduced to something Preston believed he could take away. He held out his hand. Latasha placed the badge on the table instead. Beside the bracelet. One object represented wealth. The other represented work. Only one of them had been earned honestly. Then fire me, she said. The words landed softly. That made them stronger. Preston smiled. Effective immediately. Derek stepped forward. You're firing the only person in this room who told the truth. Preston turned on him. And you are leaving the hotel. Sophie appeared in the doorway behind Derek, clutching her purple backpack. Daddy. Derek's expression changed. Why are you out of the room? The lights went off. As if answering her, the sweet lights flickered once. Twice. Then darkness swallowed the room. An alarm sounded somewhere below. Not the clear, sharp cry of a working emergency system. A broken pulse. Then nothing. A voice crackled over Preston's radio. Smoke on the 4th floor. Another voice followed. The alarms aren't activating. Latasha looked at Derek. Room 412. The scorched wiring. The ignored reports. The storm had not created the disaster. It had only arrived at the moment the truth could no longer be hidden. Everybody out. Now. Derek's voice cut through the darkness. Not loud. Certain. The kind of voice people followed before they understood why. He lifted Sophie into his arms and turned toward Latasha. Where is the nearest emergency stairwell? East corridor. Which floors have disabled guests? Latasha answered immediately. 4, 6, and 11. Preston raised his radio. Security will handle it. The radio hissed. No response. Derek looked at him. Security is already overwhelmed. You don't give orders here. Another alarm tried to sound, stuttered twice, then died. Smoke curled beneath the suite door. Derek's eyes hardened. Tonight, somebody has to. He handed Sophie to Latasha. Take her to the lobby. No, Sophie said, gripping his jacket. I'm staying with you. Derek touched her cheek. You remember what I taught you. She swallowed. Help the person beside you. That's right. Latasha took Sophie's hand. Then Derek opened the door. The hallway had vanished behind gray smoke. Emergency lights flashed weakly along the floor, painting the walls in broken red pulses. Guests poured from nearby rooms. What's happening? Where are the elevators? Why aren't the alarms working? 3 questions. No answers. Then Derek stepped into the corridor. Leave your luggage. Cover your mouth. Follow the wall to the east stairwell. His calm traveled faster than panic. Latasha moved beside him, guiding an elderly couple through the smoke while Sophie held tightly to the woman's hand. One security guard helped a man in a wheelchair. The other began knocking on doors. Preston remained inside the suite. For one terrible moment, he looked less like a manager than a frightened child wearing an expensive suit. Derek turned back. Preston, I need to call corporate. You need to help your guests. I don't know the evacuation map. Derek stared at him. Every manager was required to know it. Every quarter, they signed documents confirming they did. Preston had signed. He had simply never learned. Latasha looked toward the stairwell. Room 412 is close to the electrical riser. If the fire started there, the West Hall may already be blocked. Derek nodded. Take everyone east. I'm going down 1 floor. You can't. There are 3 occupied rooms near 412. I'll go with you. No. Sophie needs you. Latasha hesitated. Derek lowered his voice. I trust you. Those words stopped her. Not because they were dramatic. Because no one in that hotel had said them to her in years. Derek disappeared into the smoke. He found the 4th floor hotter, darker, louder. A housekeeping cart burned near the service door. Sprinklers coughed without releasing water. He kicked open one room. Empty. Then another. An elderly man lay on the floor, struggling to breathe. Derek pulled him upright. Can you walk? No. Then hold on. He carried the man through the corridor as heat pressed against his back. By the time Derek reached the lobby, firefighters were entering through the revolving doors. Guests crowded beneath the chandeliers, wrapped in blankets, coughing, crying, holding one another. Latasha stood with Sophie near the front desk. Then the main entrance opened again. 3 black cars had stopped outside. A woman in a charcoal suit entered with 2 board members and the hotel's regional director. She saw Derek. Her face changed. Mr. Mercer. The lobby fell silent. Preston looked from her to Derek, then to the gold crest above the elevators. Derek set the rescued guest into a chair and removed his smoke-stained jacket. The broke single father was gone. The owner of the Grand Meridian stood in his place. And every person who had dismissed him suddenly understood who had been watching. Before anyone leaves, the truth will be heard. Derek's voice carried across the Grand Meridian lobby. No one spoke. Rain still hammered the windows. Firefighters moved through the smoke-stained halls, while soaked guests stood beneath emergency blankets and watched the man they had mistaken for powerless. Preston's face had gone pale. Mr. Mercer, he began. There has been a misunderstanding. Derek looked at him. No. One word. Quiet. Final. He turned toward the woman in the charcoal suit. Evelyn, pull every security recording from tonight. Preserve the elevator logs, maintenance reports, payroll records, and employee complaints. The board chair nodded. Already happening. Preston stepped forward. I can explain. You erased reservations. I was protecting revenue. You ignored safety reports. The maintenance department. You framed an employee. Preston stopped. Across the lobby, Latasha stood beside Sophie. Her uniform was wrinkled, her eyes tired, and the place where her name badge had been looked strangely empty. Derek faced the guests. This hotel failed tonight long before the fire started. His gaze moved toward the damaged alarm panel. It failed every time someone chose profit over safety. Then toward Elena, the housekeeper who had been falsely accused. It failed every time an employee was humiliated because management believed she had no voice. Finally, he looked at Latasha, and it failed every time courage was punished for telling the truth. The lobby became still, not the comfortable silence of luxury, the heavier kind, the silence that comes when people finally see themselves clearly. Preston's voice trembled. You disguised yourself. You manipulated the staff. Derek nodded once. I tested the culture I created. You created? Yes. Derek looked around the lobby he had once been proud of. The cruelty is yours, Preston, but the blindness was mine. That admission surprised everyone. A powerful man could have blamed one corrupt manager. Derek refused the easy escape. I read reports, he continued. I studied numbers. I accepted polished presentations while good employees carried this hotel on their backs. He turned to Latasha. You warned us. She said nothing. You documented the failed alarms. Yes. You reported the missing wages and false accusations. Yes. And we left you standing alone. Latasha's eyes shone, but her voice remained steady. I didn't need praise. I know. I needed someone to listen. Derek lowered his head. You deserved better. Security approached Preston. He glanced around for support, but no one moved. The people who had once laughed beside him now studied the floor. Derek did not smile as Preston was escorted away. Justice was not supposed to feel like entertainment. It was supposed to restore what arrogance had taken. 3 weeks later, the Grand Meridian reopened. The alarm system had been replaced. Every maintenance complaint was reviewed. Lost wages were repaid. Elena received a formal apology and a promotion. And Latasha returned. Not to the front desk. Derek appointed her director of employee integrity, with authority to report directly to the board. On her first morning, he showed her a small meeting room beside the lobby. A new brass sign had been mounted beside the door. The open door. Sophie smiled when she saw it. What does it mean? Latasha looked at Derek. He answered softly. It means no one has to stand alone to tell the truth. That evening, the lobby filled again with music and warm light. Guests passed beneath the chandeliers. Employees greeted them by name. And near the front entrance, Latasha noticed a tired father holding a sleeping child while searching for his reservation. She walked toward him before anyone else could judge his coat, his shoes, or the amount of money in his wallet. Welcome, she said. Let's find your room. Derek watched from across the lobby. No cameras. No announcement. No applause. Just dignity being offered before it had to be requested. And for the first time in years, the Grand Meridian truly deserved the word hospitality.